Good morning, everyone. Let's begin. I felt called to have a discussion this morning on, are you living your life or is your life living you? Where to begin? Okay, when we're not awake or beginning to awake, we're living in a world of programming. I guarantee you that ever since you were born, you were programmed with certain beliefs, thoughts, perspectives, trauma, societal conditioning, etc., to get you to comply with a world that wants people to please, wants people to be of service, wants people to basically make life ever easier for everybody else. And I'll also explain that traumas from our parents, from our lineage, from all the way back, will be programmed into us before the age of 8, where our subconscious mind basically just accepts everything. It's part of the learning process of a child. It has to soak up everything as if it's truth, or else it will not survive, is what the essential programming is, which is key, but it also inserts a whole bunch of things about money and sex and what's good and what's bad and whether we're a good person or a bad person or whatever into our mind. And it creates what I would call our foundation. Our foundation is basically a set of subconscious beliefs that we operate out of in our day-to-day life. It's just the natural things. Like if I think about money, it's like, oh, well, that could be hard to get because it doesn't grow on trees because my parents said it at some point. It could say stuff around religion. I'm a sinner, or I'm not good enough. These are little things that creep into our makeup of who we are, and can very seriously, just one statement of it, if we completely believe it, can very seriously affect our ability to manifest, to have a good life, to etc. So what I want to call into awareness for everyone that's listening to this is our subconscious does far more in our day-to-day life than we're aware. Just think of something simple like somebody says, "How are you?" And our subconscious mind says, "Oh, I'm great." You could be in hell today, but our subconscious programming says that we should always be positive and bright to other people. So those little things happen. Those things happen when we're in relationships with another person. If we've been hurt by somebody else or whatever, and that other person had a verbal mechanism or some other thing that triggers you back to your trauma, you're going to make a subconscious choice about that person, say that person's not safe, and completely align them with your ex. Things around jobs and money. It's like, okay, yeah, you get a trauma from your boss at work. He screamed at you or yelled at you or whatever. You may have subconscious programming about people that raise their voice and instantly cower, or that could have happened because your dad did it when you're young. So there's a whole ton of subconscious stuff that's going on underneath. Now, the key to unwinding all this is start to ask some why questions when these things are happening. So when I said, is your life living you or are you living your life? That's the opposite of what I just stated. I want you to start asking lots of whys about things that you're doing that make you unhappy. And the why of, why do you keep doing it? Like it's all a choice, but I'm going to tell you right now, most of the people on this planet are living from a bunch of whys that has nothing to do with self-love, has nothing to do with honoring themselves. It has everything to do with fitting in. And fitting in is good to some extent, but I think we're all going to admit that we're all kind of like a bunch of lemmings right now, or a lot of people are, that are running from the subconscious because we've aligned with everything is helping us and is good for us and is all protected and governments are good and media is good and all this kind of stuff. And you're welcome to whatever perspective you want, but I'm just telling you, it's got a whole bunch of social conditions around it. And once you drill under, you're going to start to see there's a bunch of control, there's a bunch of other things that are going on. So to break out of that perspective, I want you to start being really aware of your subconscious, of why you're doing things. What made you choose that? Whose voice is running in your head when you're making a decision? A decision for a dating somebody that's good for us or whatever might be our mother's voice. Oh, well, you got to get somebody that's rich and will make you go forward or whatever. But it was something that was said to you when you were really young. And now all of a sudden we're making that decision from satisfying that thing or believing or trusting that family member was right. What else does that happen? Which job do you choose? What job are you deserving of? What are you worthy of? A lot of these things are set before we're even out of school. School and our parents and our church and our government teach us a ton of different things that help them. Do not have anything to do with whether or not you're going to feel good or not. For example, most of us are going to recognize this. If you grew up in North America, I don't know how it's different in other countries, but there's the escalator of life. So it's like, you grow up, go to school, get a good job, find a wife, have some kids, have a house, get nice things, cars, trucks, blah, 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 vacation properties, etc. And that's kind of the life purpose for everyone. And I'm not saying everybody follows this, because a lot of people are waking up now, but you'll go through that process, which is a normalized process. Your mom and dad did that. Your parents, your grandparents did that. You did all these things, and they grew up happy. They were okay, blah, 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 blah. But look underneath that. There was repression under that, too. How many people had grandparents that slept in separate bedrooms? How many people had grandparents that didn't really like each other or just made do because that was society? It says you couldn't break up. Once you made a commitment on a marriage, you're kind of stuck. How many people are doing the same job as their dad or their mom because that was their role model and it was just easy and it felt good and that kind of stuff? How many people have the same money situation, live in the same city? How much of that was from actual conscious choice or just fitting in or being comfortable or going the easy route? And I'm not saying anything of those things are bad. I'm just saying the less and less we're consciously deciding and making choices for our health, our happiness, our self-love, the more and more we go into low vibration. And when we're in low vibration, all we want to do is we get put in a state of kind of like fight or flight, which says, well, for a job, for example, okay, well, you have a house, you got to pay rent, you got to pay utilities, you got to pay bills, you got to pay insurance, you got to pay taxes, you got to do all this kind of stuff. So you go and get a job that allows you to get a house and a car and all this kind of stuff. And then there's this float. Okay, it's $1,500 a month or it's $2,000 a month for me to be able to live. Now, how many choices do you have in that? If bills go up, do you get a choice? No. They can change those numbers whenever they want. And how often has you had to go into your savings? Have you had to go into other things because the world or the government or prices went up or inflation was up, all this kind of stuff, all outside your conscious choice, but it's forcing you to stay in that job. And maybe you hate that boss and you hate the job you're in and all these kind of things, but why do you stay there? Now because you're in fight or flight, you're just kind of like, I'm going to die if I don't, or whatever your reasons are, or my parents are going to think badly of me, or I'm going to lose my house, or whatever. So you're not consciously choosing anymore, other than you made a choice way back, but that choice may have been from a unconscious why. And now you're like, okay, I'm working at McDonald's, or I'm working at the grocery store, or I'm working in a big business job. And yeah, there's bosses, there's things that you don't like. You're being asked to do things that are against your ethics or will or whatever, but you're doing it because you have to, and there's no choice. And then you add children in and you add a spouse in and all this kind of stuff. It becomes even heavier that you got to go on this little mouse wheel. Now, that mouse wheel insists that you work so hard. And then you got to bring that home, and then you get some spare time to yourself in between all things, but you're 9 to 5 or with traffic or whatever, you're probably up to 10 hours a day on work. And if you're in a corporate job, you're probably working a couple hours every night. and all of a sudden your life is dwindling away and you're not doing anything for yourself. You're doing it to meet a status quo. You're doing it to meet family expectations. You're doing it to keep your kids safe, to please them, to look successful, etc. Are those literally things that you value? And I'm going to ask you, dig down, because you're going to find out that they're very hollow. For example, I did that exact same thing. I worked for a company called Nortel Networks, professional engineer, did an amazing job, did everything that was required. It was like a set job. It had a pension and all this kind of shit. And one day they decided to go bankrupt to make a bunch of money for some people. And I got to look really underneath a whole bunch of that stuff. That security, that safety, that whatever. And now look at the time when we're being forced to do things to our body to keep our job and all this kind of stuff, which is kind of like prostituting ourselves because we didn't want to do that. But now to meet all these societal expectations, we're kind of trapped. How am I going to live if I don't have a house? How am I'm going to die. I'm going to freeze to death, or I'm going to whatever, be on welfare, and how awful that is. But were those conscious choices? Those are pressure tactics of all these things to meet this societal expectation. And I'm going to conjecture that it's exhausted you. I'm 51 years old. People would say I have a typical midlife crisis because as soon as my job and career ended and then things went, I all of a sudden had a divorce and a whole bunch of other things because I started to think and I started to understand why I was doing things where things were not beautiful or resonating in my life. And as I dug deeper, as I went underneath, I started to realize there's some very simple things underneath. The best recommendation I can give you is self-love is everything. The calm and peace and being able to spend a few minutes and look at my whys is everything. Because my whys, my true heart whys, are very different than my societally expected, pressured, programmed from my parents whys. And I'm not saying any of them are bad. I'm saying they went from what they knew best and it gave a result. And that's okay. But I want bigger results. I want adventure results. I want change the world kind of results for me. And I can't get them suffering under some mindless dictator who's a lot of our bosses and trying to please them. But when I start choosing for me and start stepping out of the system's whys, self-love, happiness, calm, peace, stepping away, these are all things that free me. And this probably feels dense, this probably feels scary because I'm asking you to question some of the things that you've been taught since the very beginning, but it's the only way out. It's the only way to get yourself back, to choose yourself, to start to shine again. And I'm just going to ask you, how's your vibration right now? And how much of that vibration and hurt and stuff is based on a bunch of job things that you didn't really choose or feeling like you have no choice in job? How much of that is around relationship stuff that fell apart, maybe was based on what your parents taught you, which wasn't probably right? How much of that is around societal conditioning, for women, things like slut shaming and that kind of stuff? For men, it's this toxic masculine bullshit where everything's being told that we're toxic masculine and we're bad. Look at how much that's to shut down sexuality. That's to shut down men's ability to be courageous and confident in front of women, to stand up in that power when it's like, oh, wow, you guys are all like this and all the women are like that. And it's all from stuff that we haven't understood our whys on. Do you want to please everybody? We're in a world where compliance is being forced and it's killing you. I'm not going to just tell you that it has anything just to do with this sickness that's going on. I'm going to say it's much deeper. And it's to force people to look inside and start to think different. So, what's your why? Why are you doing the thing that you're doing that you hate? Why are you doing and having a relationship with a person that you hate? Why are you living in repression or celibacy, because I teach about sexuality, or living in a hole as a hermit and can't date, can't find anyone, all this kind of stuff? Because we have all these mangled up things about how things are supposed to be, and dating is the most messed up thing that you can ever have. It's not about communication about what you want. It's about trying to hope that they'll understand what you want by a bunch of weird questions in between things. No. I can teach about a better way. I talk about 3-month relationship contracts, where you go in and you explore a person and you agree to be explored in that, but you have to go into a container where you talk about what you want before you go in, and can consciously ask for it. It's an agreement, and then as things show up, as fears show up, as repression shows up, all these kind of things, we can start to ask questions. And we've made a commitment to another person to go deep and not run away, and these kind of things. And at the end of that 3 months, you get to decide, did this work? Is this something that I want? But you got to decompress, and you got to have a little discussion with the other person, but they're going to give you the same, instead of going into a relationship and spending a few months with a person and then all of a sudden they ghost you because you reminded them of their ex, but they weren't courageous enough to talk about it. These are the kind of things that we're constantly doing over and over and over again, and we're hating ourselves because the system has taught us a way that doesn't work. So now we get into the whys, we get into what we want, we get into conscious communication, we get into sharing these things and communicating them clearly with the people in our world. And it's going to change everything. So go in, look at your whys. If you want to share some, put them down on the bottom. Other people are going to be surprised. They're going to be like, frick, you had that too? Okay, well, the whys are crazy. The whys are not serving us. They're serving others. And if we keep serving others and trying to please them, we die slowly. So, anyways, I hope this helps. Ask as many questions as you want, because this is not an easy topic. And if it's triggering you, just take some breaths and just feel it in your heart. Is it truth? Yes, it's truth. For me, it is. I wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't. And then if it's truth, then just start to play with the pain, the discomfort that's maybe there, because you've really shut off some of the things that you love and you want. And you're going to be surprised. You're going to start to open. There's going to be some tears and some discomfort and some emotions. And then you're going to realize that I want to do these things for me. And then the magic happens. So that's awakening. I love you lots. And this was a hard one for everybody, I'm sure. So stand strong and keep shining, and you're amazing. I love you all. See you soon.